questions I got is, did the Hawaiians really engage in human sacrifice? How could this be? Because they're such a loving, giving people. As I know them today, they're filled with the aloha spirit. What gives? Well, what happened was the Maui people, who came at about 350 from the Marquesas, were a gentle, loving people who the ohana, the family, was all important, and they didn't have a ruling class. But in 1250, the Tahitians made a migration that landed them in Hawaii, and they definitely had a ruling class, and they definitely engaged in human sacrifice. And on the Big Island, Mahukini, Hi'io, there were literally thousands of human sacrifices taking place there. In around 1250 was the first Tahitian Alihi chief that came to rule Pa'o. It's ironic because Kamehameha's birthstone is right next door to it. But at any event, human sacrifices were used to, when you built a temple, a hi'io, when you built a hi'io, bodies were ground into the structure, into the foundation. It was a blessing given by the priests. And it should be known that women and children were generally not used as human sacrifice. Who they selected, and there were people whose job it was to gather sacrifices, people to be sacrificed, but often it was a warrior who had been taken in a battle. So they collected warriors, so to speak, for human sacrifice, and there was also a slave class. And a lot of people don't realize that, in fact, they had a very, 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 strong slave class that were untouchables. They weren't allowed to intermarry, even with the commoners. And they actually had a red dot on their head, which I found very interesting because they have red dots on their head in India, which means something quite different. But in the Hawaiian world, it meant that you were a slave, and you were, to do nothing but the most menial tasks, and you were pretty much an outcast in society, and you were often used as a human sacrifice. So, that is a fact. Human sacrifice was very common. Kamehameha ended it in 1810 after he had lost so many men in battles, disease. When the Europeans made contact, disease was rampant in the islands and killed tens of thousands of them. So he determined, as a very pragmatic, not necessarily philosophic reason, to end human sacrifice. When he built his enormous temple on the Big Island, he only sacrificed 11 human beings and 300 dogs. So you see, it was evolving away from human sacrifice just out of the practicality of it, not because they thought it was a bad thing to do. But one thing, there is a bone of contention. Some people say the Hawaiians were cannibals, but they deny this emphatically. Everyone I've ever talked to about it said no. Even though throughout Polynesia, where the migrations came from,